After a bit of preface, the point I'd like to try to drive home is humility includes and transcends ego. Furthermore, light includes and transcends darkness. Life includes and transcends death and loss. Wholeness includes and transcends grief. As God made Adam and Eve, so he made us, then pronounced us good. That's not up for debate. The rest of the incarnational curriculum, though, is not only negotiating a relationship with poverty and what we're averse to, but also taking responsibility for more than is our fault, since sin's echoes aren't just individual, they're social. When Jesus' cosmic consciousness was opened, he realized he'd need to embody not just what humanity finds pleasant, what they willingly pay attention to, but also what humanity is averse to and rejects. But let me pause. I'm getting ahead of myself. The preface goes like this. For the moment, how I make the money that supports my family is separate from what I'm passionate about. And it means trying to do spiritual work in contexts whose connection to prayer isn't obvious. When I moved up into middle management at my job, the spiritual intention I brought to it was I'd like to use the job to become like Christ. That sounds good, I suppose, but I got more than I bargained for. My responsibility set includes both what my boss doesn't wish to do, as well as what those beneath me are incapable of. If people bring expectations to our store and they're disappointed, it falls to me to transition their wrath to something they can live with. That's not fun in the least. But Jesus bore more than he should have had to, and was, in fact, the catalyst of transmuting energy we've devoted to sin, enabling us to turn it into something more workable. So I do what's not in my job description, and I handle discontent. And in that, I ask Jesus to help me remember that it's not just part of how I make money, it's part of bearing the cross and embodying my corner of the divine likeness. Especially at first, it was disorienting to give up my egoic plans for spirituality. I'd constructed a whole identity from it. I'd followed consolations and revelations like they were breadcrumbs, and the big question when that trail disappeared was, if I give this up, what, God, will you use to guide me? To my spirit's question, a single clear answer filled my head. Everything. God would use not just what I deemed significant or noteworthy, but everything in life to make me who I am. That sounds good, I suppose, but I got more than I bargained for. When I realized it's incumbent on me to fulfill the law, the prophets, and the Psalms, things didn't just get better. To whatever degree I have internalized the Trinity, I also started noticing that I felt empathy for all the terrible figures in Scripture. I started noticing that I was similar to the disciples in my foibles, my betrayals, my limitations. When the disciples asked Jesus what they'll be left with having given up a whole list of things, he says they'll get it all back in the age to come, along with persecutions. If the lesson's necessary for them, it's necessary for me too, whether I like it or not. When the Hindu saint Maharaji told his devotee Ramdas to give up anger and tell the truth, Ramdas wept, but not before he spent a week being resentful and ultimately chucked a plate of food at another devotee. When Jesus read Hosea 6, he noticed the words, "Come, let us return to the Lord, for it is he who has torn, and he will heal us. After 2 days he will revive us, and on the third day he will raise us up." The teacher can be forgiven for thinking, if God is both the source of the pain and the healing, these sacrifices are unnecessary. But the fact that Jesus flipped tables and drove out the animals clues us into the fact that on a deeper level, a great deal more was happening. And we have hints in the text about how the disciples understood it. It quotes Psalm 69, "Zeal for your house has consumed me." A listener who knows the psalm would hear loud and clear the source of what seems like overreaction from the teacher. The psalm continues, "The reproaches of those who insult you have fallen on me." Even the remote possibility of becoming ourselves the necessary sacrifice for human sin, the psychological burden of it, the cost to the nervous system, this would play hell on anyone. But cosmic consciousness includes it all and must include it all. And the call to embody everything does not allow for control. For the students, as well as for the teacher, all the ways that the crucifixion will hurt make themselves apparent even before they happen. The whole cost of having a medicine injected into our veins isn't just the pinch of the needle, it's anticipating discomfort. Ramdas often verbally quoted the Buddhist saying, "Before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water." The places we get stuck, the psychological and nervous toll of the whole trip isn't up for debate, he'd say. The question is, how soon can we let it go? Jesus illustrated the answer. On the tables God has flipped, he set himself a Passover feast of Christ's body. It only remains for us to do what Jesus did, to fulfill even the darkest parts of all righteousness, to realize that here and now, it's impossible for his body to be anything else than our own. Thanks be to God. And may he help our thanklessness as well.